Are you lost, or are you trying to kidnap my brother? This is my first ever post, but reading other stories inspired me to share my own. If it doesn't fit here, please don't hesitate to let me know. I was around 6 or 7 years old when this happened. I grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone, as well as all their business. It was historic and beautiful. Nothing bad ever seemed to happen, except for the rare death or murder. There were two that stand out in my memory, but that's for another post. My family lived on a main road, running through town across the street from our local K-8 school, in a farmhouse with no farm and 4 acres. I loved it. However, this day is one that I've never been able to shake from my memory. The area I lived in is known for its very long, very snowy winters. Forecasts predicted a heavy snowstorm to roll through in the late afternoon and evening time. Due to the time of the forecast, most of the schools in our area decided to close for the day of and the day after. My mom, who hated the snow, demanded that my father call out of work to help with myself, my younger brother, and my older sister, but more so to help with the snow. We already had a good 1.5 feet on the ground outside from previous storms, so my dad was happy to oblige to keep it from building up. Before the storm began, I made a quick trip to a popular chain bookstore with my mom. I can't remember why or what she needed there, but I do remember leaving the store with a new stuffed llama to add to my growing collection of stuffed animals. I was thrilled. Anyways, we went home with my mom's book and my animal, and were ready to call it a day. Shortly after our return, the first flakes began slowly rolling out of the sky. My brother, who is only a year younger than me, began begging my parents to bundle him up so we could go out and play in the storm. They agreed, but I had to go out with him, and we had to stay in the driveway where they could see us. I got all dressed in my snow gear, and even found a doll sweater to put on my new llama. My brother took an extra 20 minutes to get dressed, because my mom had to help him. Picture the brother in A Christmas Story, and that was him. Once bundled, we stomped outside in our boots and stiff jackets, and began throwing ourselves in the snow. Time flew by. We had built a snowman, a fort, had a snowball fight, and before long, I was too cold and wanted to go inside. My brother did not. While I was trying to coax him inside, with a promise of hot cocoa and a movie, a small maroon sedan pulled into our driveway. Weird, I thought. Who would be out driving in this? Then it occurred to me that it looked just like my Aunt Penny's car. I quickly ran inside to tell my parents that she was at the house, leaving my brother outside by himself. "Aunt Penny's here," I shouted. My dad quickly stormed past me to the window, and my mom followed. I wondered why they looked so concerned for a visit from a family member, so I ran outside to the car to greet her. When I got outside, I noticed the car had pulled forward into our driveway, and next to where my mostly immobile due to his snow gear brother was standing. I waddled up next to him and smiled, ready to greet our aunt, who lived almost an hour away. Instead, I was greeted by an older, thin man with dark circles around his eyes and wispy gray hair. He kept his empty eyes on my brother. They looked angry, like he was feasting on something with his eyes. My stomach sank, and I went straight into stranger danger mode, pulled my brother back a foot with me. "Hey kids, are your parents home? Are you alone?" He asked. I stepped back another foot and shyly answered that they were home. They were inside. My mom always told me to answer with this, whether she was home or not, in hopes of scaring away anyone with bad intentions. The man's entire demeanor changed. The hunger in his eyes vanished. He looked panicked and frustrated, then quickly began trying to back out of our weirdly shaped drive, but his tires were sliding on the fresh snow. Before I knew it, my dad was there. "Can I help you?" he asked. The man looked at him and started searching in his car. I stepped closer and inside. All I could see were lumpy trash bags and filth in the back seat. "Yeah, I'm looking for, Smith Road," the man answered. My dad pulled my brother and I close to him. "You know what town you're in? There's no road by that name," he said. The man fumbled over a few more words, uttering a sorry, and quickly left our driveway. My dad took down his plate number and called our local PD to let them know what happened. They said to just spend the day inside and thanked him for letting them know. I never played with that stuffed llama again. It went into my old toy storage bin and never came out until we moved years later, only to be sold at a yard sale. I always had a bad feeling about that day and what could have happened if my dad hadn't come outside. and I wanted to get rid of anything that reminded me of it. The fact that I shook my parents made me feel uneasy as well, as they did not scare easily. I don't know who the man was or why he wanted to know if our parents were home, but my gut feeling at the time, and today, over 10 years later, was that he was looking for something more than a non-existent Smith Road. To the man with the hungry eyes staring at my brother in Aunt Penny's car, let's not meet again. Sketchy Torrez try and lure my friend and I somewhere. So, I have come across this subreddit before, and I've always found it morbidly fascinating that there is real danger that is out there, and not just the comforts of home and solitude and TV and computers and laptops and stuff like that. I've always found that interesting. I hail from a small rural town in Ontario, Canada, about an hour away from Ottawa, which is the capital city of our country. Now, nothing bad really ever happens here in Canada. People don't even lock their car doors at night. I mean, I never really thought something like this could happen to me, but then I guess it did. My friend and I, Angie, were out in Ottawa around early July, sort of near Canada Day. It's around July 1st, if I recall correctly. We've been bar hopping and having fun exposing ourselves to city life, us being country bumpkins and all. Angie is drunk, and I am not, because I had to drive us home. No Uber or taxi is gonna bring us back to our town, and if they do, it's gonna be at least a $60 cab ride. Me being sober would have been saved our lives. We decided we wanted to go visit a club. We have never been clubbing before, so we intend to Google a place and head to that location. Instead, we get lost. We're somewhere facing a bunch of duplex house and single hotel, not too especially deserted, but out of the way from the neon lights, if you know what I mean. It's silent on the street. Empty. We decide to turn back and choose another club that's easier to find. When we come across these tourists, one male and one female, they're holding a phone and a printed out page of some Airbnb directions, and they approach us, asking us if we have our phones on us at that moment. Angie immediately obliged with them, whipping out her phone. The man explains that he's here on vacation, but can't find his Airbnb, and needs us to use our phone to call the renters so that he can figure out which house is which. This man's accent is German, I think, maybe Scandinavian, definitely not French or Spanish. My friend is willing, but fortunately for her, she used up all her minutes and can't call anybody. But she can get me to call, or we could plug in the address on Google Maps and show them the way. Angie turns to me and I panic. This whole time I've been looking at this couple and it's all too weird. How would you be vacationing in a foreign country in today's digital age and not have a phone plan? How would you not know which address is yours if you have a printed copy of the Airbnb right in your hands over there, and street signs everywhere we turn? Why are they alone in this empty street past midnight? The airport is 30 meters away. If they call the cab their destination, wouldn't the cab driver drop them off on the doorstep? So many questions are rising in my head, and I immediately get red flags and I'm anxious. I make up this bullshit lie like I have only an iPod on me, and I don't have data on the iPod. Angie calls me out on it, but I shut her up and drag her away from the tourists, and close her away to the main hub of downtown. Angie is asking why we didn't help them, and I run my thoughts by her. She looks at me and then she goes, "It's strange. I noticed they didn't have any luggage, but I didn't give it a second thought." Needless to say, that concluded our night. So, German, Scandinavian tourists, I hope, if you're legit, that you found your Airbnb okay? But either way, let's not meet again. Couple at the mall. So this isn't my story, but it's my mom's experience. This took place in December of '96, and I was about a month old at the time. My parents were at the mall doing some Christmas shopping, and my dad went to get a drink from one of the stands, while my mom sat on a bench with me and the stroller. She said a young, pretty normal-looking couple approached her. They were nice and were asking for directions to a specific store. My mom said it was weird that they weren't asking employees of the mall. Anyways, they said I was cute and asked to hold me. My mom refused and just kind of laughed it off. They started out with semi-normal questions with me, like, how old is she? Are you from the area? Etc. My mom gave very vague answers, but she said it started to get weird when the husband asked her about her ovulation schedule and how hard it was for her to conceive. She said the wife was also asking if the pregnancy was difficult and if she was still tracking her ovulation schedule. At that point, my mom was extremely uncomfortable and had a death grip on me. When the woman asked to hold me again, but this time, she reached out to take me from my mom's arms. She immediately stood up and saw my dad walking back. My dad told me he saw the look on my mom's face, and he threw the drinks away and grabbed a stroller of my mom and walked away. As they were walking through a store, my mom looked back and noticed the couple behind him, and she freaked out, and they had to go about 5 to 6 stores before they lost him. Afterwards, they drove around for about an hour to make sure they weren't being followed. I've always been really creeped out by the story, because you can never be sure if they wanted me or my mom or both of us. Just overall, a weird situation, and my life could have been drastically different